morning, Richard.
Good morning, Randy. How are you today?
Good. I know we've been talking a lot about how excited we were about our meeting with Shirley Doherty a couple of weeks ago on the webinar, taking care of your performers, and she's got such a wealth of experience and background. And I know we were discussing some things with her about just how to take care of your performers. And so I thought maybe we'd unwrap some of that today in a shorter version, because I know we've both been talking about the impact of that session, not only for us personally, but just in terms of how we're approaching teaching ensembles that we're working with currently. So why don't we talk about that today?
Well, one of the great things that I've been able to experience recently is working with Shirley with the Blue Devils during Mule Corps. And, we had a meeting with staff last night that Shirley and I kind of ran. And, the way that she looks at teaching is so refreshing to me. And even as, an old school person, as I certainly am, I'm always willing to try new things. And the cool thing about what Shirley talks about is she talks about getting to the students level a little bit more and making sure that we're thinking about what they're going through, what they might be thinking after we say something, how they might react in a certain performance if they're not set up correctly emotionally and mentally, and that if their body's not ready to perform, and things that I didn't used to think about a lot. But I got to give Shirley a lot of credit. And those of you that haven't seen that webinar, I cannot encourage you enough to go check that webinar out. It will really blow you away. And she has a great book out that you can study. And I think it could really change the way that we teach in a positive manner. But anyway, I'll try to make this long story kind of short, but last week I was fortunate enough to do the Oklahoma Small School All-State Band. And I told the audience at the end of right before the last number that that term small school I thought was kind of crazy, because I just thought the band was really good. It didn't matter whether they were from small schools or large schools or whatever. The kids were fantastic. But what I did is try to connect with the students a little bit more the way that Shirley suggested. And I actually involved them more in rehearsal than I ever have with an ensemble, and found that they became very eager to be a part and to raise their hands and let me know what they had just heard, and wondering what I thought about what they just heard, and then we would compare notes, etc. But what I found happening is, all of a sudden, even after just the first rehearsal, there was this sense of us really being in this together. And it was not director-student anymore. It was like team. And I never, ever had to worry about any discipline. In most honor bands, I don't anyway. I mean, the kids are pretty good. But I mean, these kids were just focused in because I think they wanted so much to be a part of the thought process that it got them so engaged. And man, anywhere I looked in the band over the 3 rehearsals I had, they were always right with me. We had probably a better performance than I've had with an honor band in a long time. And I know it's an all-state group, so, a lot of good players, but it was still one of the better performances. And the audience went nuts afterwards, and directors were coming up saying, wow, how did you get them to sound like that? Da, 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 da. And it really was some of the things that Shirley talked about. It was basically me asking the kids what they heard, what they felt, and if what I was saying made sense to them, and what did they think after I said something? Did they take it negatively? Did they take it positively? And it was almost like doing research while I was rehearsing. But man, did I have a great time. And there's no way to define success better than when the brass section comes up and gives you a case of Mountain Dew after the performance. When that happens, you've gotten the attention of some kids. Yeah, I told this stupid Mountain Dew story, so they got me Mountain Dew. But it was like, it was almost like we did. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but we almost didn't want to say goodbye, afterwards, because a lot of us had become so close, and we were actually a team. And the parents felt it too, the directors felt it. So Start out, directors, those of you that are watching, start out by watching that webinar that we did with Shirley, because it really will blow your mind, some of the things that she mentioned. So sorry to take so long with that, Randy, but I had a blast. And I think it's probably changed the way I'm going to do honor bands from this point on.
I just think there's so much, the statement used to be made, students are always the same, they never change. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think students do change, and they're a product of their environment. And a lot of the stress that adolescents and teenagers face these days, there can be a lot of things pin marked as to causes for that. But when you put yourself in an ensemble setting and you're working towards a common goal and you're using some of the rehearsal to develop those relationships, I think it does make a huge difference. I kind of witnessed that at the Indiana Music Educators Convention this past January. Beth Fabrizio did the junior high all-state group, and it was a phenomenal band, phenomenal performance. The directors did a great job preparing the kids, but Beth was so good with those students, and that's a hard age to deal with, because you've got a mix of some 8th grade, 7th grade, depending on their level and how their junior high system is set up in their district. And the one interesting thing that Katie Briel, who heads up and does a fantastic job organizing that event, said was that, typically they'll go to a concert on Friday night. They start rehearsing on Thursday, and they'll go to a concert on Friday night. Sometimes it's the CBDNA collegiate group. This year there was not a group. And so she just got a bunch of games and stuff and some pizza, and they just sat and bonded on Friday night. And she really thinks that a lot of that, and of course, Beth's great work with them and her connection with them on that same sort of level made all the difference in terms of the quality of the performance, because the kids were relaxed. They knew that Beth cared about them. They cared about her. There was that, as you mentioned before, that sense of teamwork. And I think that there's to go with that sometimes is this issue of vulnerability. And a lot of times teachers are afraid to allow students to see them either learning themselves in front of the group, or, perhaps, just experiencing something like a student would experience it. And I think that's okay. I think that it does make a huge difference in the way that the students perform, and their comfortability and their mental health, their mental emotional health, especially in today's environment when there's so many things flying at them and we hear all the negative stories. There's a lot of great things happening in music programs that are saving kids every day.
Absolutely.
And there's no greater social emotional learning than, developing a relationship with the students that's positive, where they do have a vestment in their learning process. When I was teaching late in my career at Lawrence Central, a lot of the classroom teachers were getting into group project work, and they were seeing a lot of improvement in student achievement due to the fact that the students had a vested interest and option to participate in a different way. And I think that's automatically built into our ensemble settings, but sometimes we teach from the top down instead of this way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I think it is very, very helpful. And it's interesting that you say all this. It's amazing the timing, everything, because we had Dan Tembris came in last Sunday to work with one of my community bands, and it was the same sort of thing. Lots of questions, lots of funny anecdotes and stories.
Yep.
So many people came up and talked to him afterwards saying, "Man, you did such a great job and really enjoyed the rehearsal, and we felt like we got a lot better." And it made me think, okay, I need to do even more of that too. So, and again, perfect example, listeners, you're out there watching two old guys who have been retired.
You got that right.
For a while. And we're sitting here telling you that we're learning, and we're trying to do things differently and trying to assimilate the things that are working and not working, and continue to get better every day. And to me, there's no more invigorating thing for your students or your ensemble members than to be that way. So we encourage you to perhaps try to wear that hat for a week and see how it fits. But do go to that webinar. You can go to the Marching Arts Facebook page. It's Marching Arts Educators. Please sign up and join. All the webinars are on that Facebook page, and engage with us. There's people that post questions all the time. And, we'll be getting back to marching season fairly soon, but we do talk about a lot of things that relate to your regular ensembles, your concert ensembles, which should be the most important thing to begin with anyway. So,
Absolutely.
well, we certainly appreciate you joining us this morning. Richard, thanks again for the time. And we hope all of you have a great week.
Thank you, Randy. Good luck with everything, folks. Have great rehearsals.